May I have your attention, please? The podcast World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment, is now on the air. May I have your attention, please? The podcast World Awakenings is now on the air.
This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things metaphysical and spiritual, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
We welcome you to the World Awakenings podcast. Before we start, we'd like to tell you about a special ebook written by the show's host, Carl Gruber. The 3 Pillars, a simple 3-step process to manifest positive and permanent change in your life. The concise 32-page 3 Pillars ebook will teach you how to become a successful and consistent co-creator of your life path with the law of attraction. Yes, you can manifest the life you truly desire, and the ebook is absolutely free. Simply go to Carl's website, carlgruberlifecoach.com. That's KARLGRUBER lifecoach.com. Click on the header title About Me and get the free download today. Carl Gruber's free ebook, The 3 Pillars, will positively change your life.
All right, yes, it's time for yet another awesome episode of the World Awakenings, a fast track to enlightenment podcast. In this episode number 33, we welcome one of the most well-known and globally respected practitioners of the law of attraction, Natalie Ledwell. Now, Natalie, and I got this right off of her website. I love this line. Natalie Ledwell is a risk taker, nonconformist, rule breaker, and maker who believes nothing is impossible. And I love that. Natalie is an inspirational author and motivational speaker, and is also co-founder of the company Mind Movies, which is a company that produces software to help you create your own vision board video. And I have to say, I've been using Mind Movies for many years. She is also recognized as a law of attraction guru, using Mind Movies to help people find an easy way of manifesting what they desire in life, as well as writing the successful book, Never in Your Wildest Dreams. Natalie is also the host of the Inspirational Show, where she speaks to leaders in the personal transformation field. Natalie has also been a host on the TV show Wake Up, a show that aired to over 40 million homes throughout the U.S. That is awesome. She's also one of the founders and original members of the Association of Transformational Leaders, and this provides her with the bountiful opportunities to both teach and learn from other personal growth and law of attraction experts. Now, all the products that Natalie produces have the same goal in common: to help people achieve the dreams they desire. Her mission is to empower 10 million people all over the world to lead lives fulfilled with happiness, joy, and passion. A native of Australia and now living in Southern California. Welcome, Natalie.
Hi. Well, thank you so much, Carl. I sound like I'm busy.
Well, I will tell you what, I've been a follower of yours for many years, and over the last day or two getting ready for this podcast, I've been looking at your website. You're not bored. I mean, especially during this crazy time in the world, you are definitely not bored, right?
Right. Well, and it's interesting because, this year, the year of COVID, a lot of my calendar did free up because I wasn't traveling as much, so it presented me with an amazing opportunity to, really do a lot of work on myself. I started working with a new coach. I always have a coach.
Yeah.
But I was able to do make a commitment of doing once a week. So I got down and dirty and got rid of some Yeah, got into some corners of my mind and blind spots that I couldn't see.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of feel like I'm a completely different person to what I was at the beginning of the year. It's great.
Wow. Well, I've heard this from a number of people in our field of working with law of attraction and coaching, that this is a good time, because so many people are in quote lockdown or in quarantine or just seclusion. It is a great time to look inward, and what you just talked about. I mean, I could probably do that myself. We all could. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, let me ask
Yeah.
you this. It's been quite a journey for you from where you started as an entrepreneur to the success you found in your life. And the law of attraction was key, right?
Well, it was once we started applying the law of attraction, the success that we had was like a quantum leap. Before, so this is 2006. I remember having a moment, where I'm looking at my bills, looking at my bank account, and at the time, my husband and I at the time had 4 businesses that we were running at the same time.
Wow.
So action was never a problem of ours. And I started being a student of personal development from the age of 21. One of my bosses gave me a set of cassettes by Brian Tracy.
Yeah.
Wow, just opened up this whole world. So, we knew how to set goals and to, do your vision boards and all those kind of things. And yet we were still struggling. I'm like, I don't get it. I'm missing some vital piece of information. And then a friend suggested that we order a DVD online called The Secret. So this is when it originally came out. And I think 2 biggest things that dropped in for Glenn and I at the time was not only when you're visualizing, you have to see where you want to end up, but you have to feel what it's like to already be there. You have to attach emotion to that visualization, which we never sort of understood before. But the big thing for me was like, oh, so I don't need to know how it's going to happen. I don't need to have every single, step planned out. Because if I couldn't see how it was going to happen, I would never set the goal. If I can't see this, it's not going to happen. So all I needed to know was that I just need faith, visualize, take action, move forward, feel those emotions, and then things will start to fall into place. So it wasn't long after that a friend showed us the little movie that he created, which was like PowerPoint slides and photos and music. And then suggested that we, go into business together and set up a little website, of which, Glenn and I knew nothing about, but we knew that it was a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, everything started to fall into place. And so even though we were teaching law of attraction and teaching visualization, we were also like the poster child, for everything that we were teaching as well.
Well, it's my movies. I mean, could you explain it a little bit more how it works? Because I mean, I love the term video vision board, and I just saw recently you doing a little video chat with the amazing icon Bob Proctor, and Bob Proctor just gave you an out of the world endorsement. Could you explain a little bit more how it works?
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, for many years, people have been creating vision boards, and the purpose of a vision board is it's a visualization tool. So you go, okay, this is the kind of car I want to drive. This is the kind of house I want to live in. This is, the holiday that I want to go on. So when you put photos up of those things, and then you look at that board, it just makes it easier for you to create that picture in your mind and already see yourself driving that car or living in that house. So it was like a prompt for your mind. Now, we know that when you visualize, the thing is, everything starts as a thought first.
Yes.
And so if you can very clearly see and very regularly clearly see yourself already living this new life or having this new reality, what happens is that you're starting to create these new neural pathways in your brain. And these new neural pathways have thoughts that come from the subconscious to the conscious mind that are more in alignment with this visual that you keep seeing and that you keep feeling, and so when we talk about law of attraction, the basis of it is that like attracts like, same energy attracts same energy. So you go, okay, well, if I want to be the same energy or same frequency of the stuff that I want, how do I do that? And the answer is it's our emotions. Our emotions are the frequency that we send out. So when we can have, and you don't have to sit down with your eyes closed all the time in the lotus position to visualize. You can be vacuuming the house, and I call it daydreaming with intention.
Yeah,
And
I
you're
like
vacuuming
that.
the house, and you see yourself there, and you feel what it's like to already be. You have these little mental vacations. Well, the more often you do that, not only are you creating thoughts that are in alignment with that, but you're building your belief.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big thing, right? And you're becoming this, a vibrational match of the things that you want. So the more often you can sort of resonate at that frequency, then the faster it is for you to be able to, create and attract what it is that you need to make that happen. So yeah, so a mind movie is kind of, it is a vision board,
Mm-hmm.
except it takes it to the next level.
Oh,
So we have pictures like you would put on a vision board, but then you also have affirmations that you put on top of the pictures.
mm-hmm.
So the affirmations are, describing what it is that you want and what life looks like when you get there, and why you're doing this and what thoughts you need to be thinking. And then the secret sauce is the music.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we want to get into an elevated emotion, and we want to get to an emotion that makes us feel happy, or whatever it is that we want to feel when we're there, then the music is a really fast way for us to be able to do that. So it's, and you get the benefit of downloading these movies to your devices, your phones, your tablets, or whatever. You can carry it around with you, and you can play them at any time. It's awesome.
Well, and I love, because I've seen other videos you've done, and I love that term secret sauce. The music, the combination of repetition. Repetition is so important. It's interesting. I hadn't been using my mind movies for a little while, and I knew we were going to chat here, so I pulled it out over last week, and I started playing my own video vision boards, and it's so awesome. But you're right. The music adds something to it, but I think a lot of people, whether they're practitioners of the law of attraction or not, well, they are. They may not even realize they are.
Yes.
But people don't realize emotions have a lot of power. I mean, they are energy, just like your thoughts. And it's like the way I describe emotions is pouring gasoline on the fire. It increases the intensity of the energy you're sending out to the universe. And the problem is sometimes people have the wrong emotions with the desire that they say they want.
Yeah. Well, I think there is a couple of things that where people can kind of slip up a little bit. And one is that they go, okay, this is what I want. So consciously they're going, right, I want to create this future. And, they're watching, they're visualizing. But then as they're going through their regular life, outside of the time that they're visualizing, they could have this internal dialogue going on that's kind of holding them back, which is normally connected to some limiting beliefs. Or that you find that they fall into the trap, and maybe it's because they're surrounded by people like this, or maybe it's just a habit that they've got into. But if you find that you get yourself into lower frequency conversations where you're gossiping, or you're bitching, or you're complaining.
Yes.
And especially when we're talking about lower frequency situations like the election or like COVID or whatever else has been going on right now. What happens is that you're sending these mixed signals to the universe. You're like you'll have moments where you've got this high frequency, and maybe you're in gratitude for what you've got, and then you can see yourself in this future. But then you're kind of instantly going back into this old lower frequency existence. We want to try and make sure that we are aware of even those kind of things. If we're judging, even our thoughts, universe, it's, our thoughts all carry an emotion with them. And so if we're always judging, or, always going to that lower denominator when it comes to what we're thinking and what we're saying, then we're really, slowing down the process for ourselves. And it's something a lot of people aren't aware of.
I am really glad that you pointed this out, that, so many people almost unconsciously, and because it's the like normal conversation, they go to a lower vibrating place. And if like attracts like, well, then more of that lower vibrating stuff that they're dwelling on, like the judgment. I mean, obviously the world right now, just watch the news, is in a very low vibrating place of judgment. And that definitely would, well, more of that is going to be sent to the world. One thing that I do want to ask you, What's the best suggestion that you could offer to people who can't seem to get the law of attraction to work for them, and well, for especially the people who aren't even aware of the law of attraction?
Yeah. Well, I actually have a 6-step process that is foolproof.
I like it.
That I recommend. And and the 6 steps, well, the first one is that you want to be in your happy place, which means that you want to be in a higher frequency. So before you even think about setting a goal or where you want to go or what kind of results that you want, you need to be in a higher frequency first. Because if you're looking at the debt or looking at the loneliness or looking at the pain or whatever that is, then all you can see is that. And so if you're looking to, maybe solve that issue, then maybe you could see yourself getting out of that situation. But we need for you to see, well, what does my optimal life look like when I have the best health and I'm in an amazing relationship, and then I've got, that I'm financially free. That's where we need to go. So the first thing is you get into your happy place. You've got to be in a high vibration. And the easiest way to do that is to drop into gratitude.
Yes.
So, and I know that there's a ton of stuff going on right now that makes it, sometimes there's days where people find it, even the happiest of people, myself included, find it very difficult to get into that place of gratitude. Because it's not about, ticking off the box and writing 5 things in a journal. You have to feel it. Like, feeling it is what it's all about.
The emotion.
So, yeah. And so a little trick that I use is that I'll maybe sit out on my balcony here and I'll have a cup of tea or something, and I'll think of some things, and if I'm finding it hard to just emotionally get there, I just close my eyes, and what we know is that where our attention goes, our energy goes. And so now I focus on my heart chakra, and I imagine that when I'm breathing in and my my chest is expanding, that the energy of my heart chakra is growing, and then it comes down, and then it's growing, and then it comes down, and then it comes. So all I can feel is this heart opening happening. And from there I drop into my gratefuls. And it's just this little tiny, shift, a little exercise that I do that really helps to magnify, the feeling of gratitude, and the things we want to try and carry that with as often as we can. So happy place first. The second thing you want to do is make sure that you set yourself a really strong intention. And your intention, it's like a line in the sand. It's like you're going, okay, I am making a commitment to myself, to the universe, to whoever, that no matter what, this is going down. I'm getting, financially free. I'm getting into a relationship. I normally write just a couple of sentences like, I am, or I have, I have an outrageously successful business, and this enables me to, give to charities and look after my family and whatever that is. And whenever I'm setting a new goal and a new intention, I'll stick it on the mirror, and I actually recite it to myself in the morning for about a week. A week's all I need, but you could do it longer if you wanted to. But looking at myself in the eyes, and again, everything that we do when it comes to the law of attraction and all these steps we're going through, it's how you're feeling, emotions that you're feeling at the time is what's most important. So I have so much conviction. I have so much resolve. Like, this is going down. Like, this is happening.
I love it. I love it.
So I set that really strong attention. So that's step number 2. So number 3 is when I start to drill down and start to get clear. Like I was mentioning before, I'll write out my affirmations. And even the process or the act of going through and thinking, okay, well, what is it that I want? And writing that as if it's already happening now. What does life look like when I get there? Like, how does that change my life? What does that look like? Why am I doing this? And then I also want to think about why. Like, why do I want to do it personally? Why for the people that I'm serving? Why for the people that I love? Like, why am I going through this? Because, when you hit a challenge or a road bump, which we always do, when you remind yourself why you're doing it, it helps you to keep going. And then I also think about, well, how do I need to change the way I think? Because if my thoughts got me to where I am now, and I'm not happy with where I am now, the good news is my thoughts got me where I am now. All I have to do is change my thoughts, right?
Yeah.
So I think about, how do wealthy people think? How do healthy people think? Like, or I look at some of the negative thoughts that come up for me and go, okay, well, that's not serving me. So what am I choosing to think instead?
Mm-hmm.
So that's step number 3, is to really get clear on that. Step number 4 is then to do your visualizations. When it comes to visualizing, I do a lot of work with Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's been using mind movies in his events for about 8 years now.
Oh, awesome.
And how he teaches people to visualize is probably the most effective way that I know of. And that is, rather than, going into visualization and seeing yourself as a character in a movie, you actually want to put yourself in the scene and elicit all of the senses that you can.
Mm-hmm.
When I was, visualizing my perfect partner, the scene that I would visualize, which actually came to fruition about a month ago, we're in Monterey up here in California, is that we're laying on the beach. I'm on a deck chair. I can feel the deck chair underneath my skin. I can feel the heat of the sun on my skin. I can smell the ocean, and I can hear the waves crashing. So I've got all of my senses going, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm, reaching across, and I'm holding my partner's hand, and not that I would see a face, but I would see a form. And I'm feeling so much contentment. I'm feeling like really happy in that moment. And so, like I said, that came to fruition about a month ago. And it was very similar to what I would be seeing in my mind. So, if you can elicit all of your senses, what happens is your subconscious mind goes, oh, wow, this is our reality now. Because you've made it so real, it really doesn't know the difference between what we see and then what we, experience in our minds. So, that's a very powerful way to do your visualizations. The next step number 5 is, taking action. Of course, the best visualizations in the world don't work if you're sitting at home on the couch. You've got to be out there. You've got to be meeting people, being in the right place at the right time, having that momentum. And then the last step, which has been the hardest for me to master, although I feel like I've finally got it now, and that is surrender.
Yeah, I'm so glad you point that out.
Because, we have to surrender into, like, we've got to know where we're going, do the visualization, take action. But then we have to release any attachment to how it's going to happen and what it's going to look like when it shows up. We've got to really surrender into knowing that, universe has our back. Everything's happening in divine timing, exactly when it's supposed to. And it's happening how it's supposed to. So even when we have events that show up for us that, like COVID, in the beginning, it's like, whoa, everyone was like, I remember thinking how, like, it was beyond belief that we would have to be locked down in our apartments or in our homes. And a week or 2 later, here we are, So it was, but looking at that and going, okay, well, if this is happening for my highest good, and there is a bigger power here, then what is it that I'm meant to see here? What am I meant to know or experience? Because this year I took 3 months off social media. I would go on and do my live broadcast for my movies, but I spent no time on social media for 3 months.
Good for you. We probably all could do that, right?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. But I for a couple of reasons. Number one, it was just, everything was just getting real crazy. And I'm like, I can't. Like, for me to still do my job, this is just sucking my energy out. But I was struggling with thinking, okay, I have a lot of friends who are conscious, who I know have a meditation practice and probably sit down in the morning and do a little meditation. But then they'll get up and an hour later, they're having this big, long, angry rant about having to wear a mask. I'm like, whoa. Like, no, like, that's not what we do. Like, we can get stuck in the weeds. When we're looking at a situation and things that are going on, especially with the recent election, we can be stuck in the minutiae and the weeds and the drama of everything that's going on, and he said and she said and all of that. But that's not where we live. We're spiritual beings having this human experience, and yes, that is part of the matrix and the human part of life at the moment, but where we exist is here. And you're going, okay, well, what was the purpose of having someone who was as catalyzing as Donald Trump as president of the United States? And there's a whole bunch of things that are coming out of this that are really positive, and that I think are evolving how we see the world, how we take action, like you think of this last election, more people voted in this last election than any other election in the history of America. So
Yes.
people kind of, they're woken up out of apathy. They're working out of indifference. They're like, okay, I really feel like I need to, have a voice. So there are some great things that are happening. But if we're only focused, like I said before, on the weeds or the minutiae or the drama of what's going on, then we stay there. We don't want to exist there. We want to be up here and going, oh, what are the great things that are happening because of this?
Wow. I have a number of questions written down, and you've already answered a bunch of them because, folks, I mean, whoever's watching this or listening to this right now, you've just heard some of the wisest stuff I have ever heard about the law of attraction and beyond. Those 6 steps, isn't that part? I just got an email from you, 6 videos. Is that what the 6 videos are? Those, I haven't had a chance to watch them yet.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. We send out a lot of emails, darling. I'm not sure. And I'm very fortunate. I'm very grateful. And I know I was mentioning my husband Glenn before, who's now my ex-husband. We're still business partners, and I have the immense luxury of between the two of us how we've built this business together. But we've built it, with an amazing team, and we still, like I said, work together even though we're not a couple anymore. But I get to just focus on what I'm really good at. Which is, things like doing the videos and writing books and, creating content and all that kind of thing. So I'm not sure about that.
He does more of the logistics, right?
Well, he's, CEO, and he looks after the marketing. And then we have a whole team that just, that orchestrates everything. So that, anyone that's coming into the My Movies community has an amazing experience, whether it's from, whatever, touch point that they have within our team. We're really happy, with the people.
Well, I do want to ask you this, because, I mean, anybody who gets a chance to investigate Natalie's history, where she's come, because you and Glenn were you had, if I remember, you had 4 businesses, you were $120,000 in debt, you were working your butts off, but you weren't getting anywhere. And now you're very successful, and you're way up there. Is it hard to motivate yourself to keep going or gain new goals and desires when you've done so well for yourself?
That's a great question. So Glenn and I separated 7 years ago, 2013, I think it was. But for the last year of our marriage, I was probably not happy for the last 2 years of our marriage, and I kept having this voice coming in and saying, you're wasting time. You're wasting time. I'm like, what do you mean? I don't understand what that means. I'm like, look how our business is. It's all, and, and of course, any relationship that ends, as soon as our marriage did end, I was like, okay, what was my contribution to the end of my marriage? How did I show up in this? Because I wanted to, make sure that I could heal that. And, Glenn, he got the blame for everything. It was his fault that I couldn't shine. It was his fault to get on weight. It was, his fault for everything. Until I didn't have him to blame anymore. I'm like, oh, okay.
And emotion plays so much a part of that, and how powerful emotion is, like we were talking about.
Absolutely. And then it became quite apparent that I was using him as an excuse and a crutch not to step into a bigger game. Not that I knew what that was at the time, but I'm just, okay. So, I did a lot of work on myself and so forth. And so what motivates me now is this new project that I've been working on. It's actually been a few years in the making, but we have my first US school is teaching my curriculum that I created, which is a social and emotional learning curriculum for kids.
You have a program, PD for Kids. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's actually personal growth studies. We've upgraded. The original version was PD for Kids, and now it's personal growth studies. So we have a middle school in Florida who are the first ones doing a pilot program for us. We've been working in Africa for a couple of years, in Liberia, with outstanding results. And so, this is my new thing, and it's so interesting because I'm the most unlikely person to be doing a children's curriculum. I left school when I was 15. I don't have kids. That's like, but how sometimes an idea will be given to you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been several times I've tried to walk away from this. I'm like, no, I'm not qualified. I can't do this, the whole thing. But it keeps pulling me back. It's like, okay, no, this is meant for you. And I think sometimes we'll get these harebrained ideas that scare the bejesus out of us. And we're like, oh, I don't think this is for me. But they're normally the ones that we need to really focus on and run with, because we wouldn't have been given the idea. It wouldn't have come to us if it wasn't meant for us. And normally the divine won't give us anything that we can't handle. And so this has definitely been one of those projects, one of those situations.
Well, it's interesting. I would think that any viewers or listeners watching or listening to this who have children, and I'm like you, actually, I've never had children, so I can barely deal with my 17-pound cat, So. But I'm sure it can be very frustrating dealing with what the kids are growing up. Everything's in a virtual world now. Everything's high tech. They're used to it. And what did you see that children needed in your program, and how it would help them?
Yeah. Well, so I should also say that I created the program with a colleague of mine. Her name is Debbie Selden. She's worked with kids in trauma for, I think, 15 years now. She has 2 master's degrees. So she really comes with all of the psychology knowledge of what we were able to put together. And when we look at it and look at kids today, the world in which they grow up in is vastly different to what we did.
Oh, yeah.
So, it comes at them from all angles. There's sensory overload. There's when it comes to bullying has just been magnified 1,000 times, because now you've got this platform called the internet and social media that could really magnify these kind of things. And I think too, it's that when we were growing up, we got some life skills or some life knowledge and how to do things in life, from our parents or so forth. But I think that's a big gap that's missing right now. Because parents are busy and the kids are going 1,000 miles an hour, and I think if anything, COVID's been really great for everyone just to slow down and just reassess of where we're at, and be able to spend more time as a family and doing different things. But there's been a gap in learning basic life skills, and a lot of the things that we teach in the program are things like how to self-regulate your emotions. We didn't need to know that so much when we were younger, because what was our emotions? There was only a few things that would kind of set us off. But here, these days it's so different, and there's so much pressure, and kids are growing up so much faster, and there's a whole bunch of different stresses that the kids are looking at. We're also teaching things like empathy and compassion and kindness and paying compliments, and and then how to regulate through meditation and yoga. So how to have that mind-body connection as well. So,
and this is what you teach, this type of thing within this program for the kids?
Yeah, so all of that's covered. We get kids to set their own personal standards. We actually go through scenarios that especially with the teens, of things that they may come across, like, drugs or, different things. And so they already, because they know who they are, what their values are, what their personal standards are, they go, well, how do you apply this to this situation? So they're already pre-thinking this. We give them techniques on how to get around bullying, and give them, get them to really make a commitment to their classmates and to themselves, that if they see something that these are the different things that you can do. But the way that the curriculum is set up is so that teachers actually teach it to their existing classes. So I help train the teachers, and the teachers are the ones that are doing the teaching. So it's very science and psychology based. It's not law of attraction. It's not what I teach the adults. But a lot of the foundational things that we teach in this particular curriculum are helping to get in front of a lot of the challenges and things that I'm helping a lot of adults overcome from when they were growing up. So
this is absolutely fantastic. Congratulations on that. There's something just for you to be grateful for, that you have the opportunity to help children around the world and grow and develop in a beautiful way. That is just great, Natalie. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's shift gears here. You have a book out, and it is called Never in Your Wildest Dreams. I will admit I bought the ebook a couple days ago. I just haven't had time to really read it as much as I have. But what I could see, it's a scenario of a woman named Catherine Murray who maybe, I don't know, maybe she's patterned after your life path. And then I'm not sure. It's interesting how you have the end of the chapters. You're supposed to use a QR code. And could you tell us about this book?
Yeah, so I wrote the book back in 2013, and I remember, I'm a how-to girl. Like, I'm one of these people. My gift is that I can look at something and then be able to structure it in a way that's easy to teach, easy to understand, easy to duplicate. So I'm like structures, systems. That's me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had the whole outline for the book, and I found a publisher, and the publisher's like, yeah, no, we think you should write fiction. I'm like, what? And they go, yeah, you should write fiction. I'm like, I don't even read fiction. I don't know how to write fiction. They go, look, a lot of the, books, self-help books that have really stood the test of time are things like The Way of the Peaceful Warrior and Celestine Prophecy. And, I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like, so I went away, and I struggled for months with this. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. And then I remember doing, for the Inspiration Show, I did an interview with a guy who created a movie called Finding Joe. And it was a tribute to Joseph Campbell. And we're talking about the hero's journey, which is this 12-step, formula of how to write a story. And if you watch anything like The Matrix or Star Wars or, any of these kind of, adventure, Lord of the Rings, they all follow this formula. And I'm in the middle of the interview, and it's dropping in. I'm going, maybe my book should follow that formula as well. So I got big pieces of paper, and I stuck them up on the window in my office.
A vision board.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, the 12 steps. I'm like, well, this could go in there. This could go in there. I'm like, okay, great. So once I had the outline with that, it took me 2 weeks to write the book.
Wow.
And the good thing about writing fiction, I mean, yes, I did rely heavily on my own life experience, but it gave me poetic license to be able to really describe what some of these concepts look like when you're actually living it in a real life situation. So that was great. And then of course, we get to the end, and because I'm a how-to girl, and I'm just like, I don't know whether the message is clear enough. Like, I don't know if people really understand. And I remember, watching TV and watching HBO, and it said, stay tuned after the episode for inside the episode. I'm like, oh, I could do inside the chapter.
That's at the end of each chapter. Okay.
Yeah. So then I do these little videos, and that you can go through for the little URL. And so it describes what's happening like behind the scenes. So it's like, this is what the character is going through. This is the life lesson. This is to life. And here's a tool or or something that you can use to actually help you implement this yourself. So I kind of, took it a little bit.
What a great concept. Yeah. Wow. Well, I'll encourage people, you can just go to Amazon and download the ebook or buy the paperback. It is absolutely great. It's called Never in Your Wildest Dreams by Natalie Ledwell. And of course, a couple other things I'd like to ask. There's so much great stuff to talk to you about. You mentioned the Inspiration Show, which Natalie was kind enough. I'm not even sure how she booked me, but I was on her show as a featured guest 6 years ago. And you did interview some great teachers from around the world. Are you still doing that show?
No, so I actually finished the show at the end of last year. I had been doing it for, I think, 5-6 years or something. I think 800 episodes. It was a lot. But I decided to move over into a podcast format. And I love podcasts because for me, I mean, I do a lot of videos anyway, so my podcasts are just audio. But I find that a podcast can be a more intimate format. Like we're doing here. Like we're doing now, exactly. So the podcast is called Not Over, Just Different. Oh. And it's the phrase that I coined after Glenn and I separated. We're not over it. We're just transitioning into something different. So the podcast is really for women of a respectable age. And we talk about everything. So like, I talk enough about law of attraction. I don't need to do that. So, but obviously I have a lot of male listeners as well, but we talk about everything that we go through in this part of our life. whether it's, going through divorce or, being in long-term marriages or dating or health and hormones and everything. So, and they're very candid conversations. They're very, open conversations. So, which is something that I feel more drawn to myself. So it's something a little different, but I love it. And I completely love that format.
Yeah. Well, and you probably have a deep well of people you can draw on. I mean, you are friends with some of the top people like, Bob Proctor. I mean, you couldn't find anybody better. The John Assross of the world, Tony Robbins and Christy Whitmans, and on and on and on. And wow, I am going to check out that podcast. That is first thing I'm going to listen to this one now.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to ask, your experience is just great with the media. Tell me about this show, Wake Up. You were co-host with 3 other ladies, and it went into 40 million homes. Is that still on the air?
That's not on the air anymore. We actually did 1 season of that, and it was an amazing experience. And I remember, these 2 women sent me an email and said, we're interested in having you on a TV show. I'm like, yeah, whatever, and just ignored it. I'm like,
right.
That doesn't happen, right? And then they reached out and go, no, seriously, we want to talk about this. I'm like, all right. So I kind of got on the phone with them, and they said, look, this is our idea. We want to do this like consciously aware talk show. And I'm like, okay, this sounds good. And I'm like, well, I go, why me? How did you find me? And they said, look, we were looking for leaders in the personal growth space. And, people that already had an audience, which, obviously with my movies, we have a fairly large audience. And she said, but when we did our research on you, she goes, obviously you're good in camera, you're great in media. We like that as well. But, she goes, your business is on the internet. And you've been in business for, I think it was 8 or 9 years at that stage. And she goes, we can't find one bad thing about you or your company.
Yes.
And she goes, that just doesn't happen. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like, all right then. So so it was like I said, an amazing experience. We did 1 season, and we had people like Don Miguel Ruiz and Jack Canfield, and
wow,
amazing guests on, and really, again, having these candid conversations. I think for me, part of what I love to do is to open up a conversation, which is what I do on the podcast as well, is model what it looks like to have conversations around uncomfortable subjects. And how we model, how we should have our relationships. I think for a lot of my 30s and early 40s, there was a lot of things I could never talk about because I had shame or guilt or something around it. But if only I had, had girlfriends, or even with Glenn, been able to open up about these things, then I probably wouldn't have suffered as much as I did on certain aspects. So for me, it's like, no, ladies, we need to be talking about these things. We need to get this out there, so we're not, because we tend to suffer in silence. That's when.
Oh yeah.
So so really being able to open that up and helping everyone feel like they're not alone.
That's exciting. The show, the format, it was for a season. Was it on network TV or was it on?
Yeah, it was on the Pop TV channel on cable. Yeah.
Wow. And if you don't mind me asking, I'm a big fan of Don Miguel Ruiz, the Mexican shaman, writer who wrote the 4 Agreements. I think he left us a while back.
No, he's
because I follow his son.
Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yeah.
Junior.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And Jose is the other son. Yes.
Yeah. And so, what was that like talking to him? He had to be amazing.
Yeah, I've actually met him a few times. He's very quiet spoken. He's very serene, but when he speaks, it's just so profound. He's definitely he definitely walks his talk. He is an embodiment of what it is that he teaches. He's wonderful. I've actually got to meet the sons as well, but it's interesting. Like I remember back in 2006 watching The Secret, and and like I said, I'd been listening and reading books and walked the hot coals and had done all of that. And it was only within a short couple of years of us launching Mind Movies and being here in the US that, we had people like Jack Canfield
Mm-hmm.
emailing us, and Bob Proctor and John Assaraf and Joe Vitale. We're like, okay, so and so now this is, these are my peers.
Yes.
And it's, but that was one of the things that I visualized. It was one of the things I had an intention of. I'm like, I want to be part of this community. And you mentioned in my introduction that I'm actually a founding member of the Association of Transformational Leaders, but I'm also a member of the Transformational Leader Council, which is the original group that was started by Jack Canfield back in 2004. And The Secret was filmed at one of their meetings.
Really? Well, I did not know this. This is so cool to know this. I find that very, very interesting. So I know Australia is a big country, but one of your fellow countrymen, Rhonda Byrne, comes up with The Secret, and it filters over to you, even though you now live in the U.S. That is just amazing. And I think The Secret, when we're going back here a little bit, but The Secret came out in 2006, and it's no longer a secret. But the funny thing is, I find, Natalie, is there are still people that I run into, and they just say, the law of attraction, that's all crap. It's just woo-woo, and what would you say to somebody like that? I'm sure you encounter those people still.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and that's the thing. I think that people sometimes they get disappointed because they go, okay, I want to set a goal. I want to put my heart into this. And then it doesn't work out. So they go, okay, hands on heads, this doesn't work. I'm not going to put myself out there anymore. Mm-hmm. It's amazing as human beings what we do to avoid disappointment, or avoid failure, whatever that looks like. But the problem is, or the challenge is that the reason that they're not asking themselves, well, why didn't it work? If something doesn't go your way, then it's not hands on heads. It's not, okay, job's done. It's like, okay, well, what happened? And what am I learning from this? Because if everything is happening in divine timing exactly when it's supposed to, then that challenge that came up for you was supposed to happen for you. Okay. So most of the time, what holds us back from really having, the belief and the success that we want is that we have all these programs, we have all these beliefs and these behavior patterns that, we adopted when we were young.
Yes.
When we're between the ages of 2 and 6, we're predominantly in theta brainwave activity. And so at that age, we are like little sponges. And we are like we're observing behavior, listening to what we're told, listening to conversations. And as a 3-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 5-year-old, we're making an assumption or a judgment on it, and then we're putting it in and storing it in our subconscious mind as a truth or as a belief. Mm-hmm. But we're seeing it through the eyes of a 5-year-old. So, like I know that when Glenn and I were together, we're having all the money struggles. Every time we talk about money, you get into this like really stressful, angsty conversation. And there was never any reason for it, but that's just kind of where it went.
Right.
And then, after I did
some energy, yeah.
Yeah, and then I realized that when I started doing some work and diving into this, I'm like, oh, I'm emulating my parents' behavior because that's what I saw. And it was subconscious and I wasn't even aware of it. I'm one of 8 kids. I grew up in a country town in Australia. So, because, there was a lot of stress around money in my house. And so that's unconsciously, that's what I was perpetuating as well, even though there was no reason for it. And so when we've got all these thoughts that come up for us, and they're all connected to these beliefs that, I'm not worthy, I don't deserve this, maybe I was told that I was stupid, that I was never going to amount to anything. And even though we don't consciously know this, there's all these different thoughts that are connected to that one little belief. And sometimes these thoughts actually show up as common sense, cleverly disguised. Yeah. Or they're thoughts that go, I'm thinking this because it's going to keep me safe. And you go, well, yep, that sounds right. So I'm going to listen to this. But if you're working towards a specific goal and any thought that comes up to you for you that is not helping you get to that goal is a limiting belief. Mm-hmm. It is an old program. And so for me, I like to write them all down as I'm working towards a goal. Get them onto paper, And then when you see them in the light of day, you're like, wow, because some of these thoughts, we've been thinking them for like 50 years.
Well, I was going to say some people spend their entire lifetime and go to their deathbed. They never overcome it. So it's beautiful to hear you verbalize it and people can realize this. I love that you pointed out that children have paradigms, limiting beliefs instilled in them by the time they're 6 or 7. Dr. Bruce Lipton, the author of Biology of Belief, but in his book Spontaneous Evolution, one of my favorite books, he has a whole chapter, and he specifically states that children, their brain waves aren't developed enough. What was it, theta brain waves? They're actually in theta brain waves are the same when you're in a hypnotic state. Yeah. And he showed the research that kids literally don't have the discernment, and that what they hear, they're literally hypnotized, and those paradigms are instilled in their brain. And it's so great to hear you verbalize that.
Yeah. And the thing is, we all have it. We all have some kind of programming. But the faster we can get to a place where we recognize what it is and make this conscious choice. You first of all, awareness is the first step. That's where you get them and write them down. And then you want to release any kind of emotion that you have around it. Mm-hmm. And there's a number of ways you can do that. You can, the things like, I did the Hoffman process. They do a thing called bashing, where you get like a little wiffle bat and you get a pillow and you kind of, whack it out. You can go for a run. There's a number of things you can do. But then your next step is forgiveness. Mm. And sometimes that forgiveness is for yourself. Or you're forgiving whoever else was in the situation with you, because, a lot of the times it's very, benign situation, or something is just the way that we interpreted it. But then, of course, the last step is that you've got to choose what you're going to be replacing those thoughts with, or what you're going to be replacing that behavior with. Mm-hmm. I remember being in a course with a woman once, and she's like, "You don't understand." She goes, "If I don't hate my mother, I don't know who I am." Because it was such a big part of that. Everything that she did was fueled by her anger for her mother. I'm like, I get that, Mm-hmm. So, it's like, well, what am I replacing with, and who am I on the other side of that, and who do I want to be?
You have stated some key things here: gratitude, forgiveness, and also allowing. Abraham Hicks, I forget Hicks' first name. Esther. How could I forget that? Esther Hicks. They have a 3-step formula. It's the name of their book. Ask, and it is given. But ask, and then you have to ask for it. Then it's immediately given to you by the universe. But you have to allow. That's not written in that thing. And that is, as you said, it was hard for you. Surrender, I think you used. Allowing and surrendering, and not determining how it's going to come about. I know I've had many experiences in my own life that way. And many people have quote, what they think is a bad experience turns out to be the greatest thing they ever happened in their life. So right. It is tough. Ask and it is given. And then that unwritten part, allow it. So, Natalie, I'm going to wind this down because I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I am just so grateful that you came on here. How can people get in contact with you and join up with your workshops and your writings and mind movies especially? Can't recommend that enough. So how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, look, if you go to mindmovies.com, on that website, you'll find everything. There's access to the inspiration show, to the podcast. We've got 6 pre-made mind movies that are free that you can download, which gives you a really great idea of what a mind movie is, and also helps you to come up with some ideas of what it is that what wealth represents for you, or what love looks like for you, and that kind of thing. And if you're interested in the curriculum, and if you have a school that could use a social emotional learning curriculum, if you go to personalgrowthstudies.com, it's the place you can reach. You can actually message me there, and it has all the information about the program there. And
if people go watch the inspiration show, I recommend show number 365. I think that's the one I'm on. And which I still, again, I so appreciate you let me talk about my 3 Pillars ebook, which I'm still giving away on either on my website. I talk about it in an intro of the show too, and I really, really appreciate that. Natalie Ledwell, one of the best, most beautiful practitioners of the law of attraction, and an example of choosing the path to go on and reaching success and stay in good health, my friend. I am so appreciative of you being here. Thank you, Natalie.
My pleasure, Carl. Thank you so much for having me, and I've had the best time. It's so great.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber, a certified law of attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in each and every episode of this podcast, World Awakenings, as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that all the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things metaphysical and spiritual, and just how they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment everyday life. Much love and light to you, my friend. Thank you for tuning in.